Hello pianists! Today I would like to help address two common challenges for a beginner to intermediate piano student. The first one is how to develop your hand independence, and two, how to improve your sight reading skills. I will provide some very efficient practice strategies using a relatively simple piece by Franz Joseph Haydn, his German dance in G major. The strategies I teach you today can easily be transferred for you to more successfully learn your favorite piano pieces. Stay tuned after my performance demonstration as I'll guide you through step by step using my Bronson Musical Learning Pyramid to teach you how to play the notes, the rhythms, articulations, technique, dynamics, and style and mood. Did you catch all the ways as I played that this piece can help develop your hand independence? It can through such elements as those contrasting articulations. You heard those fun staccatos and smooth right hand. The left hand has those constant intervals or even chords at times, while the right hand is playing different rhythms and smooth slurred scale motifs. There's also very dynamics required between the hands. The right hand needs to be voiced louder. The left hand should be soft, but not just all subdued. It actually helps on those phrase goals. This is a later beginner piano piece that you can find and learn with me in public domain. It's also available in 3 other books, and I'll leave the links for those in the description. The ones my music majors learn is out of Alfred's Group Piano for Adults, Book 1, 2nd edition on page 335. Also within Classics for the Developing Pianist, Book 1, and Essential Keyboard Repertoire, Volume 1. All right, pianists, let's learn it step by step using my Bronson Musical Learning Pyramid. We always start with the most important element, especially for a dance, the rhythm. We always look at the time signature first. This is in 3/4, which is so common for these German dances, and the waltzes that they later inspired. So along with the dance, the downbeat, beat 1 will get emphasized. We'll use some arm weight when we talk about technique to slightly bring that out as louder, like the dancers might take a heavier step there. Next, we look at repetitive rhythmic patterns. This piece is sure full of those patterns. This is great to develop your sight reading skills. The left hand has almost constant quarter notes all the way through. There's only 2 quarter rests, and Haydn puts them in very smart locations at the start of the B section into E minor, rest. Those largest moves occur there. That lets you move your hand, so use those rests to move your hand, not just to stay put down low. The other one is at measure 16 to 17. So use that rest to move up, and you'll keep it nice and fluent. The right hand might take a little bit of counting as a beginner student. I put the counts on the screen there for you to follow along with. We have the fastest notes of 8th notes, so those will be counted as 1 and 2 and 3 and. Once you get that idea, then you can practice counting and tapping along with my demonstration. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. To help develop your steady beat necessary for all pieces, but especially a dance, I would suggest you practice with metronome. Find a very slow tempo, maybe even 80, to practice along hands separate first to instill that downbeat that's emphasized. And then I would suggest maybe a performance range within the Allegro, 120, even up to 168. Not too fast, as this is a very graceful court dance. Should not feel charged and aggressive, but just light and fun. Lastly, within the rhythm, we want to think about any kind of tempo markings. There's none written in, but for a dance, I would suggest a little poco retardando at measure 8 before the B section the second time through, and at the very end of the piece, the second time, a little retardando. Let this piece just gradually come to a close. All right, pianists, let's move into the note reading category of our musical learning pyramid. We'll actually spend the most time here today. I'm going to help you develop those sight reading skills using some of the strategies I'll coach you on today. First, we start with our key signature, 1 sharp. The title tells us this is in G major, but you look at your 1 sharp, you go up 1 half step. This could be in the key of G or its relative minor, down 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3 of E minor. Did you catch that mood change in the middle? He actually utilizes both keys. We start in G, very bright and cheerful. At measure 8 into 9, we go to E minor, the relative minor. It's a great way to build in those contrasts by a more subdued, even dolce, mysterious feel at E minor. Before you play this piece, I would suggest you warm up on your 2 scales, G major and E harmonic minor. So you have those notes within hand to help predict the notes that Haydn will use within this piece. You can check out some other videos for guides on how to play those scales smooth and successfully. Okay, next, good sight readers use their landmark notes to place the notes within the melody. We're going to start with our left hand first. So the left hand would have a landmark note of this F3. Notice that the left hand starts up a whole step from it on a G3. We're going to go through the left hand first, as that really informs the melody notes. The harmonies would most strongly suggest those. All right, we're going to use a series of reduction practice. If you look at your left hand, it actually has a total of 128 notes. You could go through and just memorize all of these notes, but that would really take a lot of time. I have a suggestion for you to try. You might have to change your mindset to go through this with me. I want you to think only where the chords change. If you think that way, you only have 10 chords and 20 actual changes. So we're going to go through and play the intervals where they change measure 1 into the 5th and the 3rd, back to the 3rd, measure 7, we have a D7, back to G, down an octave to G2. That's where it's most difficult. You can speed up your processing by just isolating that 3rd, 5th, 3rds, 3rds, D7. All right, let's go into measure 9. So this has gone to the relative minor of E minor. This is the 1 chord, measure 10, 5, 6, 5, 1, A major, moving us back to G, there's the D, A7. Measure 15 to 16 will be a technique spot for you to isolate. So I would suggest, to help on the fluency before you play the left hand all the way through the next day, just go to those challenge spots, measure 15 to 16. If you can't play it like that to start, do some additive practice. Maybe you can play to there. Isolate that, get that comfortable, add on the next note after that. You can block that octave so your hand knows when it expands what to move down to. Use the rest to move. So isolate 15 even into 17 to gain your fluency. Once you've practiced through the left hand, you're anticipating those chords, even label those chords based on the analysis that I have. You would want to go through the right hand next. Right hand using the landmark note. Closest landmark note is a C5, goes up a whole step and starts on a D5. Okay, in the right hand, we want to think patterns and groupings of notes. So first measure is actually just written out like trill and turn. 3rd, here's the next pattern, arpeggiates a chord down. Next pattern is a scale motive, turns down, up, down, 3rd, up and down, 3rd, down a step. So the only thing different within that measure 5 through 8 were those 2/3. I would go through and circle that at measure 6, even at measure 7. Into the B section, notice that this motive is just transposed from what he did to start this piece. In G major, does that turn? Same thing. 3rds, you could circle that one. Sequence, pattern moves down. Very stationary Ds while the left hand moves. And then starting at measure 16 to the end, this is just a beautiful repetition of the A section you already played from measures 1 through 8. So you could isolate those motives nice and fast. You start to process that as one thought. That's probably a spot you'll have to isolate in the right hand with that additive approach of building it up note by note. Okay, our next practice strategy to start to put these hands together. You don't want to keep this hand separate for too long. It makes it more difficult to actually put it together. So I'm going to have you play the left hand on the downbeats, as well as any time that it has an interval or a chord change. Let me demonstrate this nice and slow. Play the change. D7, G, E minor, B7, E minor. Here's another change, A major, D, change, move. That's the idea. These are great reduction practice strategies that I still use in learning Mozart, Beethoven, and Haydn sonatas. All right, pianists, let's next move up into the articulation category. This is a dance, so the liveliness really comes from those articulations. I want you to hear the difference when those articulations are missing, and I'm going to coach you on how to add them back in. Here's the first 1 through 8 measures. All right, let's let's add back in those excellent articulations. We'll start with the left hand. The left hand is detached all the way through because of the repeating notes. Let's even make it more charged and actually make it nice and staccato, almost like a pizzicato viola accompaniment. Might have heard one more thing that I was adding to that. I was giving a little bit of an arm weight down on beat 1, so it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. That way the feeling of the dance, the rhythm we talked about to start, is always coming out with those articulations with the technique to support it. Let's talk a bit more in depth about what the right hand should do to bring out that downbeat. So the arm weight would go down heavier. And if the direction of the notes, we're gonna use a little bit of wrist circles. Under, over, off, down, up, just nice and light, up, light, down. Notice I don't depress all the way down, just kind of a medium wrist here. Lift, down, down, little forearm rotation. Then it lifts, up, down, wrist, circles, down, wrist, circles, down, up. Take your time, even write that in. You could use the symbols of those circles and that back and forth forearm rotation to remind yourself what to do. In the right hand, let's talk about those articulations. Follow this editing where it's up on the weak beat of 3, down, up. And notice that I've added those red staccatos onto your score. The performance practice is when you have a lively piece like this with so many staccatos in the supporting hand. We're actually going to bring our hands together in dependence on one another. And the right hand is going to lift on beat 3 in a likewise staccato motion. Listen to that together. Up, down, and up, down, up. All staccatos, half note, hold, but lift. Notice I also put a comma in. This music should have a sense of breathing and kind of grammatical sense to it where the commas and periods are. So those commas you would separate. Lift. And then it lifts for that next staccato. How do you get that together like that? I would first suggest to help that hand independence. The left hand would tap just very lightly on the staccatos. They're together, down, up, lift. With that rest there. So use that to develop that hand independence. Then you could go back to that left hand reduction practice. Let's build it up little by little that way. Next, pianists, let's move into the dynamics category of our learning pyramid. We'll always start with the voicing. Which hand should I bring out louder? Simple question I like to ask my students is, which hand would you sing along with? Is it this part? Or is it this part? Obviously, it's that beautiful right hand. How to develop that hand independence is you could again tap, but not for rhythmic reasons, but for silent play. Once you can do that, slow it down, put it back onto the keys. Left hand's just going to tap very light. Keep your fingers and your wrist tall. Then you could even work on the left hand, silent, into just a little bit of weight so it becomes a piano volume. Silent play. Stay very close to the surface of the key. Okay, along with dynamics, we don't want the left hand to stay subdued all the way through. Softer than right hand, yes, but actually can help on the phrase goals, which we'll get into next. So a reminder in my scores, I use arrows. I got this from my doctoral professor. A phrase goal simply means the richest point of the phrase. The loudest point, we might stretch it a little bit. Some ideas that you can apply for other pieces to know when to put phrase goals. Often they're the highest points of your music. If we look at measure 11 is a higher point with that G. Often it's the third measure of a phrase. We think 4-bar shaping, which almost every phrase in this piece has the third measure downbeat as the goal. The only exception to that would be measure 16 with that half cadence on the D. That would be another phrase goal. Some other spots for phrase goals are where those 5/7s occur in music, like you have at measure 7 and at the very last on that cadence. To help coach you on adding these phrase goals, I would suggest you count the downbeats of each measure. Use your voice to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and bring it back. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so on. does have repeats in it, so we like those contrasts. Perhaps in the second time through, you could make it even more intense and more dramatic on those dynamics and the phrase goals. Use your left hand to help progress that. To practice that, just do the left hand alone. Let me demonstrate in the B section at the E minor. So we're going to get loudest in the left hand to measure 11. It's a great way to develop that hand independence. Play the left hand nice and clean, but add those phrase goals to support the right hand. Lastly, within dynamics, think about contrasting the keys that Haydn beautifully uses. That cheerful G major that I demonstrated versus staying closer to the keys, maybe a bit more time there. So it'd be great to start at the beginning at measure 9 just to develop that contrast of key areas. All right, pianists, we've made it to the final style and mood. So Haydn wrote hundreds of these dances for the court parties at the Esterházy Palace, where he served as the court musician for the majority of his career. His student Beethoven and his good friend Mozart also wrote these German dances. So these strategies and the style you can transfer to their music as well. So some of those style emphasis would be that quick tempo, bring out the downbeat with that arm weight, a very clearly voiced melody. Remember that these composers were writing orchestral music. Perhaps the right hand is the violin. The left hand might be the bassoons or the violas. Very light and staccato. Change the mood with those key areas. Always think about 4-bar shaping to bring out the phrase goals, which is often the third measure. So you can check out some of those other German dances. I have another one by Haydn and one by Beethoven. You can transfer these skills. Also check out my other videos for technique. To be able to bring out the expression and the practice strategies we've talked today, it really relies on how you use your wrist to support that arm weight to bring out the beautiful expression. Thanks for watching.